I think it's no secret to anyone that both our political system and our judicial system have been weaponized. While our educational, medical, banking, and nearly every critical structure within our country and others have also been weaponized, today we are going to focus on how a president of the United States can fix it. We've heard Nisara Gesara. We've heard about the Insurrection Act and martial law, but who knows what's real and what isn't because our media has also been weaponized. So today we are going to take a look at what legal avenues President Trump can really use to take back our country from the shadow government that so many speak of. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. I work very hard researching and creating my content, and I have been able to remain free from commercial influence so far. So if you'd like to support the channel, the best way is through memberships or super thanks tips, even though YouTube keeps 30% of it. They make it hard for a content creator, so I do rely on you guys so much to help me grow this channel, so please share my videos so we can grow organically, free from influence. Okay, so let's see if all this stuff we heard years ago is doable or if it was pipe dreams. A United States president facing consistent obstruction from a politicized or weaponized judicial and political system, where courts, Congress, or other actors systematically block executive actions, has several legal and constitutional options to advance the agenda that voters elected them to pursue. However, each of these legal options come with constraints and risks. The United States system's checks and balances, rooted in the Constitution, intentionally distribute power, making it challenging for any branch to dominate. However, presidents can leverage their Article II powers, strategic communication, and political maneuvering to overcome obstacles while remaining within United States law. It's a daunting task, and I am certain that research and planning have been underway for nearly a decade or more. Let's look at a little story that's not too far from the truth in today's world. President Donald J. Trump stood in the Oval Office, his steely gaze fixed on a wall of monitors displaying tens of thousands of video files, each a damning testament to a nation hijacked by corruption. Elected by a landslide, his mandate was clear: restore democracy. Yet approximately 70% of Congress, 374 members, along with a compromised judiciary, including a tainted Supreme Court and a medical establishment mired in scandal, stood united against him. NGOs have their tendrils woven into every institution, while media brainwashed nearly half the population. But Trump had allies in his replaced agency heads, an unbrainwashed majority, and world leaders from 120 nations united in one cause. The evidence? Videos of bribes, judicial fixings, and congressional conspiracies piled up like a digital avalanche, thanks to a whistleblower network dubbed the Watchmen. Initiatives such as the Government Accountability Project, Whistleblower Aid, the National Whistleblower Center, and most notably the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, have all played a significant part in amassing the wealth of evidence. But there's also seized evidence such as the Weiner and Hunter laptops and tens of thousands of videos from the Epstein and Diddy warrants. Yet, prosecuting tens of thousands of tangential players seems impossible. Trump's strategy hinged on flipping accomplices to target the main insurgents, which include over 100 key figures, including senators, judges, NGO tycoons, and the elite, whose downfall would unravel this deep state alliance against him. At 1700, President Trump declared a national emergency under the National Emergencies Act, his voice steady and commanding as he addressed the nation via an unfiltered broadcast. "The heart of our democracy has been poisoned," he declared, releasing a curated set of videos showing Senator Hargrove accepting NGO funds and Justice Merrow rigging a case. FBI Director Kash Patel, loyal to the core, mobilized agents to arrest the first 20 targets, invoking the Insurrection Act to secure the Capitol. World leaders, led by Britain's Prime Minister and Japan's envoy, pushed a UN resolution condemning the corruption and isolating the insurgents' international ties. The public erupted. In cities like Austin and Tampa, millions marched, their phones glowing with the obscene videos. But the brainwashed 45%, fueled by state media, rioted in sanctuary cities like New York and LA, clashing with Trump's supporters. International troops, discreetly deployed under the UN mandate, quelled the chaos, their presence a silent endorsement. By week 2, Patel's team offered immunity to 30 mid-tier accomplices, congressional aides, and NGO coordinators, whose testimony pinned Hargrove, Merrow, and thousands of others. The threat-enforced alliance began to crack as videos revealed blackmail tapes, turning fear into confessions. Trump's nightly addresses were streamed from a fortified bunker to keep the momentum, with declassified evidence peeling away the brainwashed layer by layer. With 70% of Congress corrupt, Trump turned to the states. Governors from 28 loyal states, from Florida to the Dakotas, formed the Union Compact, using the 10th Amendment to enforce parallel governance. National Guard units secured courthouses, bypassing corrupt federal judges. Then these conservative states called for a constitutional convention, needing just 6 more to reach the 34 required under Article 5. Next, the UN resolution imposed sanctions on NGOs tied to the insurgents, their funds frozen by allied nations. President Trump leveraged this to flip more accomplices, arresting 50 main targets by month's end. The Supreme Court, mired in scandal, issued injunctions, but Trump suspended their enforcement, citing Lincoln's 1861 precedent, a move upheld by a hastily convened international tribunal. By October, with 34 states aligned, the convention convened in Denver. Amid global broadcasts, delegates proposed amendments such as 18-year judicial terms, a new Congress via snap elections, and a transparency commission. By mid-November, the amendments were ratified, dissolving the old Congress. New elections monitored by international observers began. By January 2026, the last main targets, including a defiant Hargrove, faced trial in state courts. Their NGO empire crumbled. The brainwashed minority, now 30%, dwindled as alternative media countered the old narrative. Trump, his weary voice hoarse but triumphant, handed power to a reformed government in a ceremony atop the Capitol steps. The chains of corruption were broken. This fictional narrative may not be too far from the truth, but its timing is based on the best-case scenario of 5 to 6 months. If the saboteurs and traitors are not neutralized, this could take 2.5 to 3.5 years. It has been said that the shift will be substantially complete by 2030, which is right in line with these estimates. Now let's take a look at how this operation can be executed and under which existing laws and authorities of the president. First, let's consider what we're talking about when we talk about a corrupt judicial system. No judge or judicial system member can tell the president or his staff how to conduct foreign policy, as this is a core executive function under Article 2. You will find that Article 2 is a very powerful clause in the U.S. Constitution. It outlines the powers and responsibilities of the executive branch. The judiciary's role is limited to reviewing actions for legality, issuing injunctions, or protecting rights when cases arise, but it cannot set policy or dictate strategy. Of course, they will do anything that they can to obstruct POTUS, whether it's legal, ethically, or morally sound. Historical precedent and Supreme Court rulings affirm presidential primacy. Any attempt to overstep risks being overturned or ignored, preserving the executive's foreign policy autonomy. Stopping judges from abusing or overstepping their authority is a complex challenge within the U.S. constitutional framework, which is designed to balance judicial independence with accountability, but several mechanisms within U.S. law, combined with political and structural reforms, can fix it. Let's talk about how and some maneuvers that are likely to be incorporated into the plan. First, there must be a strategy to stop the main targets, prioritizing some and flipping others to move through the prosecutions as quickly as possible. This would be done first by identifying key insurgents such as corrupt congressional leaders, Supreme Court justices, and NGO executives, based on evidence of direct control or threat enforcement. They might initially focus prosecution on the 100 top figures rather than thousands, using videos to establish probable cause for arrests. This could only be done by leveraging agency staff in enforcement arms such as the FBI and the DOJ to execute warrants. It is likely that lower-tier accomplices, such as congressional aides and NGO coordinators, will be offered immunity or reduced sentences in exchange for testimony, per 18 U.S.C. Section 3553(e) and U.S. sentencing guidelines. One such notable use was the 2001 Enron case, where dozens were flipped. This will be many more, and federal agents will be deployed to negotiate plea deals, targeting those with direct knowledge of main targets' actions. The executive authority of Article 2 can be leveraged in several ways. I hope this helps you understand why President Trump has made certain moves. First, executive orders can be used to reorganize federal agencies further, ensuring loyal mid-level staff execute the president's agenda. This is exactly what POTUS did right off the bat. The use of the National Emergencies Act, 50 U.S.C. Section 1601-1651, can redirect funds to counter media brainwashing by cutting off money to independent media outlets, citing a national emergency from systemic corruption. Actually, USAID was a big streamline in this area, and funding to several controlled media organizations was cut. The president can also invoke the Insurrection Act, 10 U.S.C. Section 251-255, to deploy military forces to secure government buildings and protect against corrupt officials' interference, framing it as suppressing an internal rebellion against the elected government. What did we just see in LA, guys? President Trump seems to be following the playbook quite well. Congress would be notified within 48 hours per the War Powers Resolution, 50 U.S.C. Section 1541-1548, if the use of the Insurrection Act occurs. Next, Trump can preemptively pardon loyal officials or citizens targeted by the corrupt courts using Article 2, Section 2 power to shield them from prosecution. POTUS pardoned almost all of the J6 political prisoners. This is how it must go, guys, step by step. Public support is critical, and so the president could address the nation via unfiltered channels such as X, Truth Social, and public rallies to expose corruption with declassified evidence such as judicial financial ties and congressional bribes. Historical precedent includes FDR's fireside chats to reach the people. So there's lots to come, and I'm keeping my eyes open to X, Truth Social, and multiple government accounts and websites. It's dribbling now and keeping me busy. I'm going to have to find a way to keep up with it when the deluge occurs. Now let's look at some things that we haven't seen a lot of yet, but the foundation could be under construction. International pressures will also likely be necessary. We saw it with the capitulation tour, which will be linked at the end, but there must be a continued diplomatic alliance. With majority world leader support, President Trump could request a UN Security Council resolution condemning the U.S. corruption as a threat to global stability. This would leverage allies to impose sanctions or recognition of the president's legitimacy. This mirrors Cold War-era bloc dynamics. Economic leverage can be coordinated with allies to impose trade penalties on corrupt U.S. entities, such as media conglomerates and Big Pharma, pressuring them to capitulate. There are also some congressional workarounds that President Trump can avail. The 10th Amendment allows states to act where federal authority is compromised. Our not-so-fictional story talked about a state governors alliance. Such a move would work with governors from supportive states to enforce federal laws locally, creating a parallel governance. However, there are currently 27 Republican governors, so they need to flip 7 Democratic governors. Also mentioned in our story is a call for a constitutional convention. Under Article 5, Trump would urge the 34 allied governors to convene a convention to propose amendments, such as dissolving the current Congress and judiciary, replacing them with new elections or appointments. This is legally viable but slow. When the timing is right, POTUS could suspend enforcement of corrupt congressional or judicial rulings pending a constitutional convention. Right now, we have a U.S. District Judge named Brian E. Murphy, a last-minute Biden appointment based in Boston, who has defied a Supreme Court order in a case involving the deportation of 8 migrants to South Sudan. So we are seeing the events falling into place that could force Trump to suspend the judicial system pending a convention. We've already seen a complete turnaround in enforcement priorities. Parallel legal proceedings could be conducted using state courts or special tribunals to prosecute main targets. We've examined the tribunal process and which crimes can and can't be prosecuted under tribunal law. I will link that video for you. In order to accelerate the legal process, POTUS could appoint a temporary special counsel or commission to streamline cases against main targets, bypassing corrupt DOJ layers. We saw this tactic used by the deep state to bypass the DOJ against President Trump and others with Operation Crossfire Hurricane, and I'll also link that video. Expedited Supreme Court appeals could be used if any non-corrupt justices remain. Otherwise, international arbitration can be used to validate actions. The question we all have is, how long is this overwhelming task going to take? And I did a little research on that as well to give us a realistic time frame of when we can expect our governments to be liberated. So let's take a look. So, in summary, the president can operate within constitutional bounds by leveraging Article 2, the Insurrection Act, and a convention to restore power to the people despite the enormous entwined corruption. Many factors, of course, can affect how long this will take. NGO and threat-based networks could be slow flipping. We need to target mid-tier leaders first to break alliances, using international pressure to isolate these NGOs. Remember, the NGOs are the money that buys them. Cutting off the NGOs cuts off a large amount of the money paying for this. Corrupt courts can delay cases, which is what we are seeing. This could require a legal or executive action taken under extraordinary circumstances, where the usual processes might need to be paused or changed with state courts or international tribunals. Since there is such a large congressional majority of up to 70% corrupt members who can obstruct, POTUS might need to bypass Congress with executive action and convention while leveraging corrupt members' risk of public exposure to force their resignations. The brainwashed masses could be our biggest obstacle since nearly half will resist every initiative that Trump takes. This is likely going to require declassified videos and alternative media, supported by allied nations' public broadcasts. Lastly, the sheer number of people involved is going to be tedious. With tens of thousands of targets, we are going to have to focus on 100 to 200 main targets, letting accomplices' testimony unravel the rest over time. Considering the things that we've thought of that could go wrong, both known and unknown, the best-case scenario is 4 to 5 months. Assuming that videos are immediately admissible and that 30 to 40% of accomplices flip within weeks due to overwhelming evidence and threats weakening, replaced agencies act decisively, public pressure forces resignations, and 34 states call a convention rapidly with international aid. It also assumes that the 70% corrupt Congress fractures quickly under exposure. Here's how a fast and furious operation will go. During weeks 1 and 2, POTUS would declare an emergency, deploy forces, arrest 50 to 100 main targets, and launch a video campaign. A UN resolution would be passed. Then in the second or third month, convictions would be handed down, new elections or appointments would begin, and convention would be called. Lastly, months 4 and 5, the convention amends the Constitution, a new Congress would be convened, and the corruption purge would be complete. That's a plausible way that a president could get control of a country again and remove the corruption. From there, anything is possible. A realistic mid-range scenario is about 2.5 to 3.5 years, and the worst-case scenario if 4 to 6 years if courts don't allow evidence, flipping is slow, agencies face high sabotage, public division persists, or international support wavers. It's important to understand that regardless of what people may have said, there is a process to go through, and it is not going to happen overnight, but once the corruption is removed, our world will be ready to accept and responsibly handle advanced technologies. President Trump is doing a bang-up job, and the world is falling in behind him. The question is, will the people of the world be ready for our vibrational ascension?